What's going on, sports fans? Thanks for cruising over to the DFS 5-pack. We are here to talk baseball. Because of the day game is 3 day, because the day slate has 3 games, we'll be covering it for everybody. Let's go through our main picks now. Members only is already done. If you want it, grab a membership. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, grab a day pass if nothing else. Check us out, and we're ready to crush 3 slates today.
That's right, guys. Let's manage to roll. Yesterday was kind of I guess what's the best way to describe it? Like a ho-hum day, right? Like I played cash games and cashed everywhere in those, but not good enough to win money in GPPs. You kind of won a little bit more than your bunny back in baseball because your offense absolutely went off, but pitching left something to be desired.
Yeah, which is like rare. I feel like normally pitching is like my strong suit, and obviously bats are the question mark, and last night was the opposite.
I know when you showed me that lineup and you had 3 offensive guys going for over 100 points, I'm like, that is a nice offensive lineup. You're like, yeah, but I got -2 on pitching, so it's hard to get to the mountaintop this way.
Very much so. I will say, like, we talk about it though, like hitting wins GPPs. If I just get average pitching last night, maybe take down a tournament, it was still up there, decently close, even with shitty pitching because of the home runs.
Yeah, I mean, I've entered thousands of MLB DFS lineups in my life, and I can tell you that the number of times I've gotten 100 points out of hitters is slim to none. I couldn't even tell you for sure, but it's a low number.
Very low.
All right, guys. So, anyways, congratulations once again to DFS Wolfpack. I don't know if you call him a customer, but a DFS person we talk to, I guess, is the best way to look at it. He's definitely reads our stuff a little bit, but also has his own little thing going on. Either way, the point we want to congratulate him on is he took down the 20K jackpot over on Overlay yesterday for the NBA. Congratulations, bud. That is fantastic. We're all a little bit jealous for you, but also happy for you at the same time. The key thing we want to talk about, like, it just shows it can be done, right? Like, it's not impossible. It's out there. It can happen to you as well. Let's watch these jackpot grow. And MLB is up to almost 5K.
Yeah, man. As far as Wolfpack goes, really nice job. Yeah, guy we talked to a bunch, a contemporary, if you will, and real happy for him, man. Of course, jealous as hell over here. I mean, I felt like that jackpot had my name written on it, so almost like he stole it from me. But glad to see someone we know take it down, and just have to get the next one.
Yeah, right. You can be both happy and jealous at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. As we mentioned, we got 3 slates today. If you want the visual write-ups, we got all kinds of memberships available. As Bellman touched on, we got the day passes if you're just interested in today. Otherwise, for the end of the day, we're running a sale on annual memberships. It's $140 for a full year, all 3 sports. It's every write-up, every single video that we do. It's normally $200, but we're offering a $60 reimbursement for anybody who pays through the website. Otherwise, if you just want to pay manually, the Venmo and PayPal addresses are below. It's $140. You get 365 days. The NFL package is 20% off. Plenty of opportunities to support us. We'll support you. Subscribe, thumbs up, blah, blah, blah. Let's talk about today's plays. And let's talk about a guy that if I had asked the majority of you if he was going to be the leading candidate for Cy Young, or at least right up there with your boy Bieber, I don't think you guys would have thought Dylan Bundy would be the name we would have brought up. We like the idea of him switching teams because his stuff is good. He's been amazing to start the year. I mean, there is no messing around. I don't care what you're doing. Through 4 starts, when you got a whip under 0.7, that's incredible.
Yeah, he's balling right now in a great matchup, small slate. I mean, even if you put both the slates combined today, it's hard to say that he's not the top option. Listen, we know who Dylan Bundy is. This won't continue forever, but there's no reason to think it won't keep up today. And again, a really good spot against the Giants at home.
So he's going to be huge chalk. I would venture 90 to 95% in cash games. And what do you think he's going to be in big tournaments today?
Like 75 to 85.
Okay. So we were kind of flirting with the idea because, again, Bundy has good stuff. So him pitching well is not insane. He's just really had trouble sustaining this throughout his career. And maybe that part of that was pitching for Baltimore, where, nice hitters park, not a franchise with not a lot of good things working for it. Maybe this is the new him, not to this extreme, but maybe he is a good pitcher now. So, what are your thoughts on a 3-game slate like this for the fade? Is that something that you like, or is it going way too far out there and you just assume try to make your claim somewhere else?
Well, I mean, yeah, I can definitely get on board with it because you look at these tournaments they offer on DK, especially, they're so top heavy. You want to get to the top. I don't know what the big one today pays out, but whether it's 20 grand, 25K, 50K, even 10 or 15 grand, they're very top heavy. So whenever you have a guy that's going to be like 85% owned or something like that, hell yeah, I can get on board with the fade and even going with some bats against them. You also need to realize that when you do that, it's most of the time not going to work out. And it's also not a situation where I'm like, I really feel like he's going to get rocked here, so I'm certainly not going to put a lot of money towards that. I also don't really want to use a choppy Dylan Bundy. So for me, this slate is more of like I don't need to play it that big.
I completely understand that. And again, we're trying to take the contrarian angle a little bit because that's the best way to get paid big in baseball. But you also have to feel good about the contrarian angle, and that's not something that we feel great about today.
Yeah.
There's something to be said, as somebody like yourself who's got multiple 50K wins, like that's great. But when you're playing for bigger money, when you give it all back trying too hard to be opposite, then it's not profit. It's just, a temporary windfall.
Yeah, it's great point. But then also, like, the other side of what I said was when you have these big tournaments, you're going to have people that do that don't use Bundy, that just have dead lineups in there. So on the other hand, it almost makes sense just to use all the Bundy there. You know what I mean? There's definitely different ways to look at it.
Yeah, I would absolutely play him in your cash games today, knowing he's going to be, if he's under 90% owning cash games, I'll be surprised.
Yeah, same.
All right, moving on from there. So let's touch on a couple of offensive guys. We've got a couple of GPP one-offs we want to bring up after this, but I think you can use Jerickson Profar of the San Diego Padres today in pretty much any lineup. He's going to fit the build. Even if you go top-heavy on pitching today, he's still not a negative detriment to your salary cap. He's got second base and outfield eligibility, back-to-back starts with multiple hits. And Mike Minor, who was a little bit of a DFS darling last year, has lost velocity on his fastball this year and is getting hit significantly harder. So he's not a guy that we're scared of. I don't think Profar is a must or anything like that, but he definitely fits the build in any kind of lineup you're putting together.
Completely agree with you on all points. More solid than spectacular going back to his old stomping grounds. He's 3,700 on a slate where we don't have a ton of like really cheap guys we want to play. He fits any type of roster construction, as you said. Cog type.
You're going to need several guys like this if you want to roster a Mike Trout or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next up. So we got a couple of GPP one-offs we want to touch on, and here's one of them that we wanted to go into, and that's Evan Longoria of the San Francisco Giants. So first and foremost, with Bundy being overwhelming chalk, there isn't going to be any Giants batter that you're going to get as very popular today. So there's a variety of Giants that maybe you could look at as a one-off. You brought up the example of Matt Boyd yesterday, who was, if not, he was right up there as the top pitchers on the slate, right?
Yeah. I mean, behind Gallen, he had to have been. I didn't go back and look, but in just you saying that, I mean, he scored basically the same as Davies.
Yeah, and Davies, I mean, again, most of the overwhelming love went to, I think Gallen was, over 50 in the double up I had him in. Stripling was terrible, but he was like 83% in the double up I had him in, so he was still able to easily win in the $25 entry double up with him. Bundy's going to be a huge chalk today, which is going to come into all the Giants. But going back to the Matthew Boyd point, there was 5 or 6 White Sox home runs?
Yeah, 5 or 6 White Sox home runs, exactly.
So you can one-off Longoria against Bundy, and, Longoria's got a bunch of experience against Bundy, and he's got a couple of home runs off of him. He's got extra base hits in 3 or 4. He's very affordable. And what you're hoping right here is maybe just Rendon doesn't go off. Maybe you can get a few extra points out of Longoria and get that extra salary cap in a situation like this. Or if you want to be super contrarian, play a couple Giants against Bundy. It's a little bit more aggressive than I want to be, but we just thought we'd kind of talk through the idea of a Giant or two. Because Bundy could easily give up 3 runs today, strike out 9, and still be the best pitcher on the slate.
Yeah, it all goes back to what we talk about a lot, and that home runs and strikeouts are king. So if Bundy all of a sudden, strikes out 5 of the first 6, but gives up a solo home at a Longoria, both of those guys are optimal plays.
All right, let's move on down the list. So kind of in the same theme as a GPP one-off, take a look at Trevor Story today of the Colorado Rockies. First and foremost, the only guy, at least on this slate, with more points per game from an offensive perspective to Trevor Story is his counterpart, not his counterpart, but the other guy up there, Fernando Tatis, who had a big night last night again. Trevor Story is averaging 12 DK points a game, batting .326, OPS over 1,000, same number of points per game as Mike Trout. Because Greinke will also get a decent amount of love because the pitching options are weak. Story's going to go way under owned. People don't look at him nearly as often against right-handed pitching or when he's outside of Coors. But on any given day, would you agree with this statement? Mike Trout's a better player than Trevor Story. But on just fantasy upside, Story is right there, if not maybe even higher because of all the stolen bases he throws in. Trout isn't running quite as much as he used to as he gets a little bit older. So you can get this guy low owned. He's got 5 career home runs off Zach Greinke. Again, we're not stacking against Greinke, but you could play Greinke and Trevor Story.
Definitely. I love this call a lot. He's from Texas, so going back home, he's always played well here. He's got really good numbers against Greinke. For me, not only are people not going to play him because of Greinke, but also like who in their right mind besides someone like that's crazy like me is going to play him over Fernando Tatis at almost the same price? Not a lot of people, but that's baseball. I love this call in tournaments.
Man, so being with NBA and MLB rolling at the same time, I'm laser focused on NBA right now. But the last couple of days, last week or so, I've made it a real point to watch a lot of extra baseball, and it's just a steady reminder of how a couple feet here and a couple feet there and these small sample sizes make a huge difference. Watching the Nationals and Braves games last night, we hard recommended that 2K second baseman comes up, he hits a home run. Next time up, he misses 11 points by half a foot. With the bases loaded, hits a line out to the third baseman, double play instead of 11 points. Meanwhile, Juan Soto comes up later, a guy I had in my lineup. He misses a home run by 4 or 5 feet twice in the same at bat. One goes just left of the foul pole. On the pitch after that, he goes out. Outfielder catches it with his back against the wall. So you can make the best play on paper, but in a small sample size in baseball, a couple feet makes such a big difference. Tatis can come up today, hit the ball hard 3 times right at somebody. Story could hit a triple to the gap, score 2 runs, and it just one at bat like that can be just the littlest thing.
I was thinking about NBA and MLB also last night. And for me, what I was thinking about is I had Pete Alonso in one of my lineups because I stacked the Mets, and obviously he went nuts. He was hitting 6th last night. They moved him down the lineup. And he was, in the tournament I used, like under 1% owned. And he wasn't a good play on paper. But for me, what I started thinking about is how on any given night, especially a night like last night, there are so many more plays in baseball than I feel like there are in other sports. Like, because every single guy almost could have a good game. Like, obviously, some are projected to have better games than others, but where in the NBA, it's all about minutes and how much usage, et cetera, a guy is going to get. Like in baseball, it's all even. Like Austin Romine is going to get the same amount of at-bats as Mike Trout. It's just so different that way.
Yeah, I did the writing for NBA today. There's legitimately, my player pool is 14 players, and you have 8 roster spots. So all you're trying to do is whittle it down from 14 guys down to your favorite 8.
Mm-hmm. In MLB, on any given day, if a pitcher's bad, any single team could be in play.
Yep. All right, let's keep moving along because we got night baseball to talk about as well. So we went with a couple of GPP one-offs, which is outside of our norm, but we want to talk about a guy that we think is applicable in basically any format you're going to run out there today, which is Brian Goodwin of the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Significantly too low cost today at only 3,300, matched up with the Trevor Cahill we're not at all scared of, especially only making his second start of the year. And he was very wild in his first start. So Goodwin's having a great season with that 975 OPS. He's got 4 bombs already. He adds a little bit of speed to the equation. He plays in a good lineup. When you got Rendon and Trout in your lineup, it's a lot deeper than it used to be. I don't know where he'll be in the order today. Obviously, we prefer the higher up he is, and I would expect him to have a decent spot in the order, but he's in play in all formats today.
Yeah, he's got to be in play. Really, has supplanted Justin Upton as their third outfielder. Upton is a shell of himself. Goodwin is just a better player at this point. I don't think anyone can even argue that. The only thing Upton might have is more power. As far as everything else goes, Goodwin's the better player. I expect him to continue to see regular run for this Angels team. I hope that he's not at the bottom of the lineup, but even if he is, he's 3,300, small slate. He works in all formats.
If you were trying to build I used to be really good team, the Angels got 2 of the founding members in Justin Upton and Albert Pujols.
They do. Pujols is obviously, I would say those guys are similar now, Pujols and Upton. Pujols has just fallen off so much more because he was, so good. He was so much better than Upton before. But right now, man, Upton might be one of the guys I'd even take Pujols over.
You are really hard on the machine, but he gives you no reason not to be hard on him with his 253 on base percentage.
No, I'm saying I would take Pujols over Upton.
Oh, really?
Yes. Like, which I haven't said that about basically anyone. Upton looks lost.
Yeah, I do. If you told me one of those guys got it back, though, I'd go for Upton because
Sure.
we've seen Pujols just be a shell of himself for, I think, 5 years now.
Yeah, I mean, he just doesn't make good contact. He's so slow. See, that's the other thing about Cabrera and Pujols. It really doesn't help their cause. They're so slow. So anytime they have to hit anything on the ground with a runner on base, it's a double play. They can't stretch anything. Like if they're on second, they have trouble scoring on a single. They don't score on a double from first. And that makes them look a lot worse.
What would Albert Pujols and Miguel Cabrera have to do to get a triple? I mean,
right?
Somebody shoot the right fielder? I mean, what are the options here?
You look at them when they hit a ground ball with someone on base, you don't even see them in the baseline when they're running.
Yeah, it makes me feel really fast, and those guys are actually younger than I am. It's kind of sad. Again, we've touched on this a lot this year. It sucks watching these. I mean, because when Albert Pujols at his prime is arguably as good as any hitter that's ever walked the face of the earth at his prime. Again, I'll take your Barry Bonds and your Ken Griffey Jr.'s. You can put him right up there as well. But during that 10 years where he was the machine, I mean, this guy was as good as they come.
Yeah, definitely one of the top, 3 right-handed hitters I've seen in my lifetime.
Yeah, and you can make the argument for the best. And again,
sure.
You can give me Mike Trout, and you can give me Miguel Cabrera, and there's a couple other guys that are in there as well. But at that point, we're just talking semantics. He was greatness, and I almost feel it's weird for the younger people who kind of watch this stuff. It's been a long time since Pujols was that guy, but when he was on the Cardinals, this guy was awesome. I mean, he was Mike Trout without the speed.
I was hearing people talk about Juan Soto's ability to hit is like Pujols is now, like how Pujols was when he was younger.
Yeah, so you've really got me, and I watched all of his at bats last night because I played him. But Juan Soto, I think it's a small sample size this year, but it's taken another step in the right direction. This guy, and I don't know how big he is, but talk about easy power. He flicked his wrist last night and hit that home run late in the game that I wasn't sure was going to be caught, but it went 20 rows deep out into center field. It was 450 feet, which is his third home run in the last week of 450 feet or longer. That ball that I talked about that was caught at the warning track, I mean, he barely touched it.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's funny, and it doesn't mean anything because this is just talking, but it's fun to talk about. And as of right now, I would take Soto and Tatis over Acuna. And again, that doesn't mean anything because that's just me saying it. But I think these two guys are the Acuna also, but man, Soto and Tatis are incredible.
Yeah, the effortless power of Juan Soto is really, truly impressive. So we could go on and on.
He has the best anyone in baseball. Soto.
Best eye?
Yeah.
I saw it last night, and it was funny because you had mentioned that yesterday. I watched him take back-to-back strikes on his first at-bat that were called balls, and he's already got the respect of the umpire because on a lesser batter, I mean, you can see it plain as day on the screen, right? Those were both borderline strikes, but they were right on the edge. They were perfect pitches. He took them both, got balls on both of them, and Toussaint's what do I have to do, man? Oh, you're Tiki Toussaint. He's Juan Soto. What do you think you have to do?
And Soto carries himself with this swagger and confidence that is just I love it. I love it.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, guys.